Hey Plant Pals, Mike the Keto Gardener, and today's cooking video is my wife wanted for her lunches throughout the week, and also for myself, is she wanted some meatloaf. Now normally, uh, meatloaf, I make the meatloaf with if I'm making it just for her, it's gonna have the Italian breadcrumbs and uh, sweet tomato sauce on top. It's going to contain a lot of carbohydrates, which I can't eat. So I'm going to use other options. So I've got the beef, and I've got my seasonings, and I got my eggs for a binder. I got my peppers. Peppers are ones I grown. That's not. That's not. Onions aren't. The tomatoes are tomatoes. They're kind of squishy because I had them in the freezer and I thawed them out, which is fine that they're mushy because they're going to be going into the meatloaf as a flavoring. So I get that good flavor with the instead of having ketchup or whatever in it. And I will be making a very thin ketchup in honey top, so it's gonna have some sugar. Now some people are going to say, and I've got some celery too. Some people are going, well, onions aren't keto, and some of the other things they're going to say aren't keto, but keto is just a word. You want to be in ketosis, which means what your body does with the sugars that are in it, and onions do not affect me. They don't, and I'm also a type 2 diabetic, and onions don't raise my blood sugar at all. Now, if you're someone who onions will spike you, don't use them. Use something else. Use green onions or whatever won't affect you. Some people are sensitive to tomatoes. I'm not. So, with my body, it's not a big deal. Your body, your body, you make your own recipe. All right. And I'm also I'm going to use instead of breadcrumbs for the binder, I'm going to use beans. So, and beans don't affect my blood sugar or my in moderation, of course. And if I sat down and ate a big plate of beans, wouldn't affect me at first, but then later on, like an hour or so later, I'd start seeing a rise that would rise for like the entire day, which would be bad. But since how I'm combining it with the hamburger, the protein, it's not going to bug me at all. So it's going to be more fiber along with it, so it'll be good. All right, enough lecturing on that. Let's get to cooking. I'm gonna get all my ingredients together. I thought I had everything together, and I just realized I don't. So I'm gonna grab the beans, and I'm gonna get going. I'll be back. All right. I also have a can of chipotle peppers and adobo sauce, so that'll add to the smoky deliciousness. I'm gonna put some of that in there. And I've got my garbanzo beans, and I've got black beans, and that's going to be the binder instead of using breadcrumbs. And plus it bulks it out, so it'll be a big, big honking size meatloaf that'll last me throughout the week, which would be great because it's supposed to snow again, like, I think tomorrow. So, yeah. So this is also another reason why I wanted to show this recipe is it's a very simple method that I like to use. I call it the blender quick method. So instead of like making a sauce or doing a lot of chopping and prepping, I just pretty much chop everything into small pieces, and then I put it in the blender. And my wife hates mushrooms. She likes the flavor, but she hates the texture. So I will blend that, and then so again, it'll add protein and add moisture to the meatloaf, and she'll never know that it's there because there won't be the texture, but it will add that good flavor. So I'm going to partially chop all this up. I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm going to put it in the blender, blend it. I'm going to add it to the bowl. I'm going to mix in my hamburger, and I'm going to form it into like a football shape. Put it on the baking sheet, bake it for probably an hour, and I'll show you the results. Well, actually, I'll show you the about like. Well, I'll get to that. I'm gonna get everything started first. I typically go by volume here, and once the pitcher is full, I'm good to go. So I didn't really need the chipotle because I already have my own spicy peppers in there. So I eliminated that, and I eliminated the garbanzo beans because the black beans were filler enough. This isn't the most appetizing looking thing the state is right now, but I guarantee you once I blend it in with the ground beef in the bowl here, that it will, and then I bake it and cook it in the oven, it'll be delicious. Oops, speaking of, I need to turn the oven on. That typically helps. Turn the vent on. All right. So I'm going to mix that up, form the shape, and I will be back. All right, I realized at the end I had enough for 2 very large meatloaves. Now, they look kind of funny right now because this is how I like to cook them. I cook them on a rack because that keeps them up off of the bottom, so that you get kind of almost an air fryer effect. The air circulates all around it, so that it browns on all sides, cooks evenly. And that's why I have this kind of flat football shape, because my wife likes the crispier end bits. I like the juicier middle of the meatloaf. And neither of us really like sandwiches from it, but we do like to cook up some broccoli, have some broccoli with it. It's good. Now, if I wasn't doing a keto, I'd have some mac and cheese or mashed potatoes, but I'm doing keto, so that's not what I'm going to do. And my wife is a veggie person, so she loves the broccoli and Brussels sprouts and stuff to go with hers, which I'm not that big of a fan of. All right, well, I'm going to get these 2 in the oven to bake, and I'm going to come back in probably 15 to 20 minutes to make the, what you do is you let this set up and start cooking, and then you make the sauce, the topping that goes on the top, and you brush that on, and then you let it cook for the last 40 to 50 minutes. All right, I'm going to stop it, and I will be back. Well, I'm going to pause it, and then I'll be back in 10. All right, I figure while I'm waiting for the 10 minutes, I might as well get the sauce made so that I can brush it on once I'm ready. So I like to start off with some, this is just cumin. And again, this is just by my taste buds. I almost never give out exact ingredients, because then you complain that you didn't like the recipe when you should just be making it the way you like it. This is my pepper powder, and you can see when I started, my pepper powder was like up to here. Now it's down here, so I can't wait for spring to come so I can, this is like super hot. I can't wait to so I can get back to growing and dehydrating my own peppers, because the ones I grow inside I just typically eat. Because I like the fresh peppers as well. Put some pepper, black pepper, some salt, and this is just what goes on. You brush this on the top, and it gives it that I don't know. That's what people like on top of their meatloaf. So this is just simply ketchup. It's got no high fructose corn syrup or anything in it. It's going to cover 2 very large meatloafs. So again, no, ketchup is not keto. And yes, it has sugar and carbohydrates. But this tiny amount for those 2 very large sheet pan trays of meatloaf that's being brushed on, that I'm thinning out with other stuff, is not going to affect my blood glucose. Hey, it might affect yours. That's why you've got to test yourself. I don't keep harping on that, but if you go to any, you post any kind of recipe like this, you always get the comments every time without fail. Worcestershire sauce, Worcestershire. Yeah, people are funny. Use some vinegar, some balsamic vinegar, which the balsamic vinegar is sweet and the ketchup is sweet. So I'm going to basically mix this up right now, taste it, and if it needs more sweetness, I could just add an artificial sweetener to it. But I got this honey here that was on sale. Again, honey is not keto, blah, blah, blah. A couple tablespoons for 50 servings. It is not going to affect my blood glucose. Smells good. It's supposed to be from my state wildflower honey. It's supposed to be 100% real honey. We'll see. But first I'm gonna, and since I'm making this for myself, shut it. I'm making it for me and my wife. Yeah. Let's add a tiny bit of honey. I'll probably add a little bit more. Oh, I'm gonna add some tamari. Thin it out, and plus it gives it that salt. And if you watch a lot of my recipes, I do use a lot of the same things for a reason. Tamari adds that umami, that good meaty taste to things, that savory note. And you could make caramel with tamari, and it would be delicious. All right, give it another taste. Perfect. All right, so this is going to get brushed on the top. Once it gets up to temperature, I've got my brush. Basically, I've got another probably 10 minutes or so. I just threw it and just put it in the oven, so got another 10-15 minutes, and I will be back. All right, these have been cooking. I'm trying to button the fan down a little bit. These have been cooking in the oven for about 15 minutes. Already looking great. And I've got my sauce here, so I'm just gonna divide them up. My light went out, like it always does. Now I do have a ring light, but I don't have any place to plug it in around here close. But I feel like dragging the cords around, so hopefully it'll be still reasonably visible. All right. And what I do is I just, like I said, this is the reason why I didn't care about the amount of honey and stuff in there, because this is very thin. It just brushes it on, and this is basically like seasoning for the top. And so the amount you get per actual serving is just a tiny bit, but it does add a lot of flavor, especially with all the Worcestershire and hot pepper powder in there. All right, so I got that one glazed. Again, it'd be a stickier, glossier glaze if I had more honey in it and more ketchup, but that's not what I'm doing. So, but I think it looks good, especially considering I know that's going to taste good. It's going to taste great, actually. All right, make sure I got all the sides brushed. So every piece has some flavor. All right, I'm going to get these back in the oven. I'm going to let them cook for probably another 45-50 minutes, maybe less. We'll see. It depends on, a lot of different factors, but I can easily I'll just stick a metal skewer down there, and then you can touch the skewer and you can see, if you got asbestos hands like me, you can tell the temperature of the meat just by that method, or you can just pry back a little bit from the middle and look down the center and see. But the reason why I cook it this way is because it's thin. Instead of a loaf pan, the inside, if you got a square, or not a square, but you have a rectangle loaf pan that's like this, and tall, it's going to take forever for the heat to reach the inside, where this is pretty much all being cooked at the same time. So it cooks faster, and I think it tastes better. All right, I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to let it cook in the oven, and I will show you the results when I'm done. All right, the meatloaf is done. It's very beautiful. I pause and serve myself up a plate. It's kind of still hot out the oven. I should probably let it sit for a couple minutes to tighten up. I could use this to make some gravy for it, but I'm not doing any of that because I'm hungry and I want a slice right now. Be right back. All right, get myself a slice. You see, it won't need anything but just the spatula here. Like I said, if it sat for a little bit longer, it would be, so you can see it's steaming, it would tighten up and be easier to slice, but it looked pretty easy to me. And that's my low-carb meatloaf. Delicious.